Kahile tumi sabha satchahaya Krishna prema se paya yara bhagyadaya Yea, all Kichu, that Kahile, you spoke to me, you Sabha, everything. Satya, truth. Haya, becomes. Krishna prema, love of Godhead. Say, anyone. Haya, achieves. Yara, whose. Bhogya udaya, fortune is now awakened. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Dear Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, what you have said is all true. Only one who is favoured by fortune attains love of Godhead. One who is actually very fortunate can begin Krishna consciousness, as stated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Rupa Goswami. Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Poi Bhakti Lata Bij. Madhya Lila 19, text number 151. There are millions of living entities who have become conditioned by the laws of material nature. And they are wandering throughout the planetary systems of this universe in different bodily forms. Among them, one who is fortunate meets a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna and comes to understand the meaning of devotional service. By discharging devotional service under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master or acharya, he develops love of Godhead. One whose love of Godhead, Krishna Prema, is awakened and who thus becomes a devotee of the inconceivable Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be considered extremely fortunate. The Mayavadi sannyasis admitted this fact to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is not easy for one to become a Krishna conscious person. But by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu it can be possible, as will be proven in the course of this narration. Om Gyan Timarantasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshushun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, he forced my eyes open with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Good fortune. To be favoured by fortune, to get the blessings, to get the mercy. I didn't get a chance to listen to a Lalanath's class, but it's this point of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's like a turning point for the Mayavadis. That they've been blessed. They've had the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They've been inimical, just by dint of their, predilection, their taste, their attitude towards reality, and somehow or other, Lord Chaitanya, he sent his two followers there to Varanasi, and they tolerated the association of all of the sadhus in the area for some time, but they were always hankering for hearing from Lord Caitanya, their beloved Lord. So he came there and he gave some association, and they were still concerned about the welfare of the Mayavadis. So Lord Caitanya, he performed this amazing pastime to sit down in their vicinity, to give them association. Prior to that, his chanting and dancing was witnessed by the Mayavadis, but they couldn't take it in. They couldn't appreciate it. They couldn't. It didn't gel with them. Just like we were in Rishikesh, and we were staying in an ashram, Anand ashram, and there were many sadhus wearing nice orange cloth, and it was well organised, well managed. They had nice arrangements for feeding sadhus, and the resident pundits, they were there, and they were very learned. Every day they were reciting the Bhagavad Gita. They had very nice saintly qualities, and they were dedicated to staying in that holy place. After a couple of days of our festivals, they were getting more and more interested. They were coming and wandering past and peering in and trying to take notice, seeing what was happening, and appreciating the excitement, and also quite amazed by the number of Westerners who were coming and who were being transformed by the kirtan. So on a few occasions we had a chance to have an interchange with these pundits, and they were observing the effect of the holy name, observing the effect of the association of devotees, and so we started discussing a little bit of Shastra, and I think I mentioned Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam. And the sadhu completed the verse. And on other occasions they were also discussing and observing and witnessing. They were from Bengali background, so they were familiar with the culture. They were familiar with the culture, but after staying for some time and getting a little bit warmed up, they would then retreat back to their own ashram. They had their own philosophy, their own path that they were committed to. So it was more of an obligation. They'd bought into this school of thought. They hadn't been exposed to a higher level of discussion. They hadn't been given the repeated association of devotees in order to change their point of view. So Mayavadis, Prabhupada on quite a few occasions says that the Mayavadis, they are just less intelligent. In order to buy into such a philosophy, they're not so smart. And we can often point out to them, okay, you're saying it's all one, but who are you? And are we discussing? And doesn't it mean that there's two of us? If it's all one, then if you became liberated, then everybody would become liberated. It would just be, we're all one, we're all interconnected like that. We're all part of the. Your philosophy is inconsistent, and many different fundamental flaws in their philosophy. Still, they here have come to the point of acknowledging Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And again, in a similar way to the Rishikesh sadhus, they have proclaimed that only one who is favoured by fortune attains love of Godhead, Krishna Prem. So they're aware in the scriptures, of these descriptions. The classic Mayavadis, impersonalists, from the Bhagavatams. Actually, there's only a couple of instances of impersonalists in the Bhagavatam who become devotees. And one instance is of the 4 Kumaras. The 4 Kumaras were impersonalists. They wandering, again, the Kona Bhagavana Jeev wandering. They were wandering throughout the universe, and they approached the gates of Vaikuntha, and they entered through 6 of the gates. At the 7th gate, they were stopped, and they had an altercation with the doorkeepers, and then Krishna, he arrived, and by his association, and actually by smelling, specifically by smelling the tulsi leaves that had been offered to the feet of the Lord, their minds changed. And they discussed, they then described later that their father, Lord Brahma, had explained to them, they'd heard the philosophy, they'd been explained to about the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he had a beautiful form, he was wearing garlands, glossy hair and lotus eyes. They'd heard about it. They'd heard about that description. But up until that point, they were just absorbed, attracted by the impersonal concept. Jnanis, the 4 Kumaras, are empowered with Jnana Shakti to preach the devotional knowledge. Narada Muni, he's empowered with the Bhakti Shakti to spread devotional service. So these impersonalists, the 4 Kumaras, they had a change of heart. He had to have a change of heart. I guess that was the turning point for me, because I wasn't a card-waving Mayavadi, but I was heavily infested by the impersonal philosophy. At one stage, my cousin came to visit me, and she set up a tent in the backyard, and she stayed there for a whole week. And her companion, I found out years later, was a devotee, Kinkini. But they were there for a week, and I never understood. I never realised, never took advantage of any of the they were pretty quiet. They weren't overtly preaching about Krishna, but still they have the association. And for so many years covered over. But then we were in Adelaide, and my brother, he met a devotee in Rundle Mall. And they had a nice exchange. He ended up walking away with a Hare Krishna cookbook and that album, Change of Heart. So it came home, and it came home. Impersonal. My brother brought the record home, and he put it on the record player, and we listened to it. It was nice. I must have listened to it a dozen times. And the cookbook, I think we used the cookbook once. I cooked Simply Wonderfuls, prepared some Simply Wonderfuls. And we thought, wow, it's just too sweet, too much, full on. But I couldn't stop I couldn't put down the cookbook. I kept on looking at the pictures, seeing the pictures of Krishna and the cowherd boys, and reading and saying the names. So it was very attractive. Then after a couple of weeks, suddenly the Change of Heart record disappeared. My brother had taken it and swapped it for another record. Went to the record exchange. But still, just a little association like that. And then I don't think we were at uni then, but at university we met the philosophy of Zen philosophy, Zen macrobiotics. So became a follower of them. They had a few. There was a way of living, a way of cooking, but there was some macrobiotic. There was some Zen philosophy behind it, and they were saying about the beginningless beginning and the endless end. Just the Buddhist idea of throwing in some meaningless, sounding pretty far out, idea to contemplate, and suddenly after stretching your brain and really delving into it for a long time, suddenly you're supposed to get a realization. The koan, you're supposed to get a realization. So somehow or other the other aspects appealed more to me than their philosophy, and we managed to navigate through that. And then this was at university. Then we ended up in Melbourne in Greville Street, Paran, and had a job. And every morning my job was to go out and chop firewood. We had a wood-fired oven. We were baking sourdough bread. So where the wood was stored in the shed at the back, the front door had a huge picture of Lord Shiva painted there. So every morning Lord Shiva was beaming down on us, giving us his blessings. Then we ended up in the hills. Somehow or other I met my girlfriend. She took me to the temple, and the first time in Melbourne Temple, first time we stood in front of the altar, in front of the deities, all I could see was bright lights. Well, it's pretty bright in there. Another time you come to the temple and you hear the kirtan, and you hear loud noises. Even my mother came to the temple for the first time, and it was probably on my initiation day. She came into the temple, and the kirtan was a real wampa stomp. I had to walk out, and she came out about 5 minutes later and said, "You know, it's very peaceful in there." There's different perceptions. The next time I stood in front of the altar, somebody pointed out, "You see who's on there?" I was introduced. Here's Jagannath, Balaram and Subhadra. By the mercy of the devotee, I was actually able to see the deities. And then hearing a bit of the philosophy, taking prasadam. First time we took prasadam, because of the macrobiotic idea, which is all brown rice and seaweed soup. We looked at the plate and we thought, oh, I won't be able to touch that. It's too rich, it's too sweet. All right. We just kept on eating and smeared, took everything off the plate. A couple of Sunday feasts later, here we're not encouraged to take takeaways, but in Melbourne they had those little foam plates and people would stack up takeaways. So I managed to get 7 plates together, and we were living an hour's drive away. After the Sunday feast, managed to polish off 2 plates in the car on the way home, and then that was one meal, then the dinner, then the next morning a little bit more. I finished off the rest of it, and I thought, oh, I can't live without this prasadam, so drove down to the Gopal's restaurant. I used to go there regularly. Korma was in charge, and I had a job. I was selling different products, and I would go there. I went 2 or 3 times, and Korma would entertain me. He would let me go through my spiel. And eventually, after the 3rd time of saying, sorry, we're not interested in any of that, I gave him a gift. We were doing Dr. Bronner's, spiritual Dr. Bronner's, and so he took some of the soap. And then after, maybe something must have softened up in my heart, so we were coming to the temple. We'd heard that a guru was in town. So we'd come to hear the guru. And we got there and we sat down, and the announcement was made, the guru's sick. So Ramai Swami sat down and gave class. So he was the first person I saw when I was looking for a guru. He was the first person I heard from. So, and slowly, the heart got softened. Oh yeah, just before moving into the temple, we bought a set of Srimad Bhagavatams. Rasamoya sold me a set of Bhagavatams. installments, and we had them installed in the house, and we hadn't paid it all off. And then the house we were living in was in the area where the Ash Wednesday bushfires started. Then one fire started behind our house, about 50 metres behind our house, but the wind blew it the other way. So we were told to evacuate. So the first thing that was packed up was the Srimad Bhagavatam set, and it was put out in the lawn. And fortunately the wind went the other way, the fire went the other way. I think the next morning or the day after, we got a letter in the mail. It was from Gopinath Acharya, who'd sold a set of Bhagavatams. And he said, I heard about the fire. I hope you're okay. I hope you're okay. We thought, wow, that's so nice. Somebody's reached out to us. And by the way, can you send along your next instalment for the Bhagavatam? So the devotees were there and they were giving us mercy all the time. Krishna was playing his part. By the mercy of Guru and Krishna, then one gets the blessings, one becomes fortunate. So our life was becoming hellish in the suburbs. We had a dog called Rama. Rama, yeah. We'd go out for a walk with Rama. And then one day, Rama wasn't there. So I walked all around the neighbourhood and I was calling out, Rama, Rama, Rama. I would chant my rounds and chanted some rounds and calling out, Rama. And they came back and then we found Rama was curled up on the front doorstep. He'd been hit by a car. So I had to dig a hole for him and bury him. And at that point, oh no, I just had a big fight with the missus. So I went outside and I was doing something and I was just, I didn't pray. I don't know whether I looked up or I just called out or I asked, why am I so frustrated? Why is life so frustrating? And bang, 3 days later in the temple. It was some sort of call, some sort of plea, some sort of help. I'm not in control. I'm not the one. And 3 days later, ended up in the temple. So, classic recipient. And I've always said to people that I'm just a mercy case. Okay, nothing, no good qualification. Just by the mercy of the devotees that were able to be able to hear, understand, take advantage. Struggle to take advantage because the impersonal upbringing, the lifestyle that is so pervading, it's still very present there. The different levels of God realization, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. You're considered most fortunate to attain Krishna Prem, Bhagavan realization. So it means that most of us, or most of the time, it's the Brahman platform and the Paramatma platform. We're listening to instructions. We want to actually develop that love. And Prabhupada says a couple of times that Krishna consciousness is easy in theory, but the application is difficult. To put it into practice is difficult. The science is there, but to actually realise the purport of the science. And I was reading a nice thing, Mukunda Maharaj, he just had in his book Miracle on 2nd Avenue, he just had a nice exchange with Srila Prabhupada. And he realised how much he lacked faith in the words of his spiritual master. And his conclusion was, it's difficult to love someone, and once loving someone, it takes a long time to get to know what pleases them the most. What pleases them the most. So it's difficult to get to know Krishna. Manusyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhanam yatatam kaschid mam veti tartata. Out of many thousands among men, one may aspire for the truth. And of those who have achieved the truth, hardly one knows me in perfection. So it's 1 in a million. So that's an indication of how fortunate devotees are, devotees become, how fortunate they are. They're 1 in a million. And still amongst devotees, there's different degrees of realization, different levels of realization to get to that topmost level of Krishna Prem. Actually, Srimati Radharani, she's the emblem, she's the embodiment of that topmost level of love. She displays the different symptoms of Krishna Prem. In Prema, the stage of Prema, there's 10 different levels. Prema is the first level. The topmost level is Mahabhav. And once you get beyond Prem, you can't maintain your life in this body. Lord Caitanya, he was said that the devotees would glorify him. You're such a great devotee. He said, if I was such a great devotee, I wouldn't be here. I would have gone back to the spiritual world. I would have left. If you attain Prema, beyond that, those stages of emotion and those ecstasies, they're too much for the material body to bear. The emotions, that Mahabhava, madness, death, like that. So Srimati Radharani, she's the emblem, the topmost emblem of that Krishna Prem. So for one to come in contact with Krishna is rare. Mahatma, Samahatma Sudulabha. After many, many births, one who's actually got this knowledge, then he can understand. He can, and then he's considered to be a great soul. So the Mayavadis, they're recognizing Lord Caitanya. And this is a prelude, acknowledgement, just to recognize, to recognize that I don't have Krishna consciousness, I don't have what it takes, that I need the mercy, that I need to get help, that I need to get assistance. This is what it takes, and then, because then one will start to ask for assistance, and to seek out proper association. To seek out proper association. Association is everything. Maharaj, I remember you saying that association is more important than chanting Hare Krishna. Without association, we can't chant Hare Krishna properly. And Pankajangri Prabhu, he also said that if he wasn't in the association of devotees, within 7 days he'd probably stop chanting Hare Krishna. Without the association of devotees, without the association of like-minded souls who are practicing chanting Hare Krishna, then we don't have much hope. So, and the association, one gets in touch with the devotees, then one hears about the philosophy, one develops some faith, one starts to practice the philosophy. One starts to engage in sadhana. And in due course of time, if we're diligent in one lifetime, if we're specially favoured in one lifetime, if not, if one is not attentive in one's chanting, then one can take many, many lifetimes to actually achieve success. So it is not easy for one to become a Krishna conscious person, but by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it can be possible, as will be proven in the course of this narration. Lord Caitanya, he wasn't holding back. He broke open the treasure chest of love of Godhead, and he freely distributed it by singing and dancing and chanting, and by giving repeated association. So that's the effect of devotees. Any person within an 80-kilometre radius of a place where there is a deity established, a Shalagram Shield, they get uplifted. 80-kilometre radius. Prasadam is being distributed. They're hearing about Krishna. There's the sound vibration. So just the fact that there are devotees here, then it's an influence upon the whole region. And there are many different devotees here, many different ways of associating with devotees. Just get on the telephone, get on the messenger, and keep in touch. I remember I was down in Canberra. I was posted down in Canberra. The GBC installed me there, and it was pretty isolated. One morning I was out there. It was cold, out chanting rounds early in the morning, And I had the realization, I'm the only one in this whole city chanting Hare Krishna. I thought. So when I was installed, the GBC also told me that if you ever need association, don't hesitate. Just get on the bus. Go to Sydney. Just get on the phone. Just take association. Get association. Don't hold back. So somehow or other we're still around. We're still able to keep in touch with devotees, and in some little way help to spread that good fortune, give that fortune to others. So I'll just read the verse again. Dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what you have said is all true. Only one who is favoured by fortune attains love of Godhead. I had so many different ideas what to talk about, whether we're going to talk about the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, how the different, who's considered to be the most fortunate devotee, but due to lack of association, this is what I managed to come up with. So, does anybody have anything they can add? Any stories? Vaishnavi, ever dependable.
Thank you for the question. Interesting exchange of I was wondering, you said only by the mercy of the Guru and Krishna one gets love of God. So we hear the example also that the rain falls on the ocean and the plants and the rocks as well. So good fortune is going everywhere, but then it's also the receptivity of the rock. So we also understand that we always know that we are the mercy case, and it's only by Krishna's mercy we are here, but we also need to act in such a way that it's dependent on us. So how do we find that balance?
Okay, yeah, the mercies.
Pray for me, but they're not acting on that prayer. You find sometimes people just say, oh, pray for my child, or they become Krishna conscious, but what are they doing as a parent? So you may pray, but then it also has to go both ways, that they need to act on that prayer.
Yeah. Yeah, you start off with the rain falls everywhere on the rocks and in the water. Yeah, causeless mercy is available for everybody. The only difference, what is it Puri used to say? There but by the grace of God go you or I. The only difference between us and anybody else is that we got the mercy. But the mercy is available for everybody. It's not strained. Shakespeare, falls like rain, not strained. There's another saying about the quality of mercy, causeless mercy. So it's available for everybody. But what's the difference between devotees and not devotees? They've taken advantage of it. They've put it into practice. They've recognised it and they've developed it. They've built on it. In Sankirtan, we were trained that we should act in such a way that nothing's going to happen unless we endeavour, unless we go out there and spread the mercy. But we should know within our heart of hearts that nothing can happen unless Lord Chaitanya, he gives the mercy, unless he agrees to accept that person. So we're trying to engage somebody, but they're not doing it. So rather than forcing them, we can try and trick them, but we have to pray. Please allow them to engage in Krishna service, or please cover them over so that their demoniac mentality doesn't prevent them from engaging in devotional service. So trick somebody who's not taking the mercy. Pray for them, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's up to the individual whether they want to take advantage of it or not. We understand it's a two-way dynamic. There's Guru and Krishna. There's our desires, and there's the witnesser, the permitter, the super soul, whether they will allow somebody to take advantage of the mercy.
So Bhakti gives a good story about it. It says that there was a man who fell down the well. This is another one of these. The man who fell down the well, and he was calling out for help, help, help. And so then someone came and threw a rope down. Help, help, help. Oh, take the rope. Help, help. Take the rope. So he wouldn't take it. How am I going to help you if you take the rope, then I'm going to pull you out. But he was just calling out help, help, help. And he wasn't taking it up. So he tells that story. So I was just thinking that there's the word bhagya in the verse. It means good fortune or auspiciousness. And of course the Mayavadi sannyasis, of course it says the Mayavadi, I take it was probably practicing under Saraswati who was responding. They don't say what that good fortune is actually, but Lord Caitanya Prabhupada in his purport says what the good fortune is. That Brahmanadi Korna Bhaktivinoda, that the good fortune is that one has a desire, Krishna arranges, the Guru comes and invites the Guru, must be one meets Krishna. So Prabhupada said that Lord Chaitanya's movement is creating a good fortune for everyone. Just by our activities, we're creating the good fortune, the auspicious atmosphere where people can come forward and take it up. But it's up to them. And then Prabhupada gave another, just like the sun shines everywhere. You can either stand in the sunshine or you can remain in the shade. So it's up to you to make that decision. But the auspiciousness, the good fortune, the bhagya is created by the Lord through his devotees. And in the Kali Yuga through Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. So by us going and spreading the Krishna content, we're creating the good fortune. We're creating that auspicious atmosphere for everyone to come under. But as you said, bring the horse to water. You can't force them. You can't force. I mean, Krishna could force everyone, but he doesn't. And because he wants to see that coming out of love, not force. That whole saying, he who is forced against his will is of the same opinion still. But you can't force. Krishna wants us, I mean, he creates everything, but it's up to the individual. So all the acharya, all the devotees work tirelessly to create a very fortunate, good atmosphere. I was just thinking that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used when the Mayavadi sannyasis came and he was sitting and he manifested a great effulgence. And so they were very much, their ultimate goal was the Brahman and effulgence. So they were attracted. Some, even Vaishnavas have commented actually that Lord Chaitanya made the Mayavadi sannyasi Varanasi his followers because he manifested the effulgence. The Prabhupada actually answered that. He said yes, initially, and then they were attracted to his personal beauty. So by that, he created a very favourable mood in their minds towards it. But then, as we're going to read in this section of text, then he convinced them with philosophy to actually. So all those things were used. The effulgence, his personal beauty, they were very attracted to him, he was very beautiful. And then he presented philosophy. So a lot of things are arranged to create that bhagya, that good fortune. I mean, it's up to us to come and accept it. If you don't. And there's always that, what is the prophet always doing? Chant, can. Was that a cartoon? Yeah. It was a cartoon. Chant, and the reply was can. So, but nevertheless, like you were calling out for your dog, Ram.
Yeah, true.
Just the same line of discussion, Krishna doesn't interfere with the independence of the living entity. But it seems when somehow or other you do get that good fortune, it's like you're hooked. And Krishna doesn't let you go at that point. If we all look back on, like you told me last wonderful story that you came we don't understand what he's doing. But so it seems that Krishna does get involved at a certain point. Once the devotees have favored you or Sankara, and he sort of gets in your life. And if you understand what I'm saying. Like that I was put in situations that obviously Krishna is putting me there and understand it. So it seems that Krishna does personally get involved at some point. Because it's initiated by the devotees and Krishna.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Krishna doesn't interfere with our independence, but the devotee understands what's Krishna's ultimate desire. So the devotee sometimes pushes, uses a little bit of force beyond. Well, Krishna's not learning that, but he forces Krishna's hand, and because Krishna also he says that he fulfills the words of his devotees. So if the devotee proclaims, like Prabhupada says, I will deliver anybody who preaches in, I'm more favourable for somebody who preaches in my home city in Calcutta. He'll give 1,000 times the blessings. So the devotee can intercede. And you notice, Krishna says, if somebody chants my name once, even derisively or jokingly or offensively, then I mark that person down as being better than anybody else in the crowd. So, Krishna does step in. He does then. Krishna is in control of everything. He's making it all happen. But the free will to interfere with the free will. It said for one, the devotee, or the Bhagavad Gita describes it, one in the mode of ignorance. They should not be disturbed, but rather they should be engaged in acts of devotion. So as Maharaj, you were saying about the different arrangements that Lord Caitanya was making, I think at the end of the purport from yesterday, that they're already inimical. People are already inimical, so we shouldn't aggravate that attitude. So use whatever it takes to make people favourable, to pacify them, to try and give them, and to share their good fortune, even just to wake them up. And who's the most difficult person to wake up? Somebody who's pretending to sleep. Yeah. So the intercession of the devotees, that they're trying to spread good fortune. They're trying to be a good representative. They're trying to remember why we're here. What's the advantage of being here? What's the disadvantage of not being in the association of devotees? It's a lovely position, and just by struggling in the waves, being tossed in the waves and struggling, you're on the boat, and sometimes it's a struggle, and you think, okay, it's too much, I'm getting seasick, and you jump off the boat. But it's even worse, out of the frying pan into the fire. So to just persevere, and to see that, as Prabhupada said, ISKCON will go down in history as having saved the world in its darkest hour. So it's not completely dark yet, but it's going to get darker. And the only shining light is the Srimad Bhagavatam, the scriptures, the association of devotees, prasadam, Krishna's mercy. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.